The soft hum of the server racks was Eleanor Vance's lullaby, the glow of her monitor, her sunrise. For 5 years, the 32-year-old had toiled in self-imposed obscurity, building a revolutionary application. Her family in the pristine suburb of Evergreen, however, saw only her brother Marcus, the brilliant lawyer, and his equally accomplished fiancée, Sophia, a sharp marketing executive. They thought Eleanor was simply treading water, exploring vague computer hobbies, while her true potential lay dormant. Tonight, at Marcus's engagement dinner, the air crackled with anticipation, not for Eleanor's silent triumphs, but for the union of two seemingly successful lives. Little did they know, Sophia's company, Horizon Health Solutions, was on the cusp of acquiring a groundbreaking piece of technology for millions. The look on her parents' faces when Sophia, mid-conversation, leaned in and whispered, "Wait, you're the founder of HealLink?" That singular moment, the sudden dawning recognition, was worth every dismissive comment, every holiday dinner where she felt invisible. Marcus's jaw remained stubbornly on the floor. Growing up in Evergreen meant living under a certain kind of expectation. Eleanor's father, Robert Vance, wasn't just an architect. He was the architect, whose designs graced the covers of prestigious magazines. Her mother, Clara, commanded courtrooms as a celebrated judge, never losing a case. And then there was Marcus, 4 years older, the perfect firstborn, who followed their father's path into law without a single misstep. Their home was elegant, but it felt more like an evaluation chamber. Dinner wasn't just for eating, it was for reporting accomplishments. So, what did everyone achieve today? Mom would start most evenings. Marcus always had something impressive: perfect test scores, debate victories, prestigious internships. When Eleanor's turn came, her answers never quite measured up. "I built a program for fun," she announced at 15, genuinely proud of teaching herself new coding languages over a weekend. "That's nice, honey," Mom replied with that particular smile that never quite reached her eyes. "But shouldn't you be focusing on your pre-law preparation?" Colleges look for sustained commitments, not hobbies. Dad would nod along, already turning to ask Marcus about his advanced legal studies project. The message was clear: computers were distractions. Real achievement happened in courtrooms and corporate boardrooms. Eleanor's bedroom became her sanctuary, a place where she could dive into programming languages and tech forums without judgment. While Marcus's walls displayed framed academic awards, hers had printouts of code and sketches of app interfaces. She'd stay up until 2 a.m., immersed in lines of code, then drag herself through her advanced placement classes the next day. Not that her parents noticed her exhaustion unless it affected her grades. When she was 16, she developed a program that helped organize her school's massive annual charity gala. The event coordinator, Mrs. Gable, was amazed when Eleanor's software cut their planning time in half. "Your daughter has a remarkable talent," she told Eleanor's parents at a school function. "Oh, Eleanor has many interests," Mom replied diplomatically. "But we're focusing on getting her law school prerequisites in order." Eleanor wasn't even planning to apply to law school, but her future had already been decided for her. The regional coding competition during her junior year marked a turning point. After months of preparation, Eleanor qualified for the finals with an inventory management system she'd built. The competition fell on the same Saturday as Marcus's prestigious university acceptance celebration. "We're so sorry, sweetie," Mom said, not looking particularly sorry at all. "But your brother's worked his entire life for this. You understand, right? Maybe next time." Eleanor competed alone, the only student without family support, and won first place. The judges, professional software engineers, told her she had natural talent and vision beyond her years. She came home clutching her trophy to find their house full of relatives celebrating Marcus. Her achievement warranted a quick, "That's wonderful, dear," from Dad before he returned to toasting her brother. That night, Eleanor made a decision. She would succeed on her own terms, without their validation. She would build something they couldn't dismiss or minimize, something that would force them to see her. Senior year brought college applications and parental pressure to apply to Ivy League schools with strong pre-law programs. Instead, Eleanor applied to state universities with excellent computer science departments. When her acceptance to Westview Tech arrived along with its generous merit scholarship, her parents reacted as if she'd announced plans to join the circus. "You're throwing away your potential," Dad said, disappointment evident in every syllable. "Your test scores could get you into prestigious programs." "Computer science?" Mom questioned, her voice rising. "That's not a field for someone of your capabilities." What they meant was, "That's not a field worthy of a Vance." Marcus, home from his first year of law school, tried to mediate in his well-meaning but condescending way. "Maybe it's just a phase, Mom. Let her get it out of her system before law school." Eleanor left for college that fall, with her parents' expectations weighing on her, but also with a lightness she hadn't felt before. Finally, she could immerse herself in what she loved without constant judgment. What her family called failure, she recognized as the first step toward finding her own path. College was liberation. At Westview Tech, she wasn't the daughter who was squandering her potential on computer games. She was Eleanor, the student whom professors singled out for her innovative approaches to programming challenges. For the first time, she found herself surrounded by people who spoke her language and valued what she could do. During sophomore year, Eleanor met Beatrice in her advanced programming class. While most students struggled with the final project, Beatrice and Eleanor finished it in half the assigned time and added extra features just for fun. They started grabbing coffee after class, staying until the campus cafe closed, talking about technology and its untapped potential. "The healthcare system is broken," Beatrice said one night, her laptop open to an article about medical communication failures. Her mother had been misdiagnosed 3 times before finally receiving proper treatment for a chronic illness. "Doctors can perform miracles, but they can't communicate with each other or their patients effectively." That conversation sparked something. Over the next week, they sketched ideas on napkins and whiteboards, envisioning a platform that would revolutionize how medical information flowed between providers and patients. By semester's end, they had the skeleton of what would eventually become HealLink. Summer break meant returning home, where nothing had changed. At family gatherings, the first question relatives asked Marcus was about his legal residency. The first question they asked Eleanor was when she was switching to a real major. She started giving vague answers about studying technology that allowed conversations to move on quickly. "Computer stuff is getting popular," her uncle would say with a dismissive wave. "I'm sure you can find some entry-level job when you graduate." Maybe IT support. What they didn't know, Eleanor and Beatrice were spending every free moment building their prototype. They worked from Beatrice's parents' garage in the city, a space they generously cleared for them. Her family brought them sandwiches and asked questions about their progress. The contrast with her own family couldn't have been starker. By junior year, they had a working beta version. They entered entrepreneurship competitions, winning enough prize money to file patents and incorporate their business. A professor connected them with Dr. Harriet Chen, a frustrated hospital administrator who became their first advisor and eventually their first paying client. "This could transform patient outcomes," Dr. Chen told them after seeing their demo. "How soon can we implement a pilot program?" Meanwhile, at Thanksgiving dinner her senior year, her father cornered Eleanor by the dessert table. "Clara and I have been talking," he said, using her mother's name in that way that signaled a united parental front. "We're concerned about your job prospects. Marcus can help you get an administrative position at his firm. Something stable while you figure things out." Eleanor took a deep breath. "Actually, I'm working on starting a business." His laugh wasn't cruel, just incredulous. "A business? Eleanor, be serious. You need experience before you can think about entrepreneurship. Get a real job first." That was the last time Eleanor tried to share her professional life with her family. It hurt too much to have something she poured her heart into treated as a childish fantasy. Eleanor and Beatrice graduated and moved into a tiny apartment in the city's bustling downtown. They lived on ramen and coffee, coding until their eyes burned, taking side gigs building websites to pay rent. Their first office was a corner desk at a co-working space they could barely afford. HealLink slowly gained traction. A small angel investment from one of their competition judges allowed them to hire their first employee, a brilliant developer named Tyler. They landed a contract with a regional medical center, then another with a network of outpatient clinics. When Eleanor called home, conversations remained superficial. "Work is fine," she'd say when asked. They never pressed for details, assuming fine meant she was getting by in some entry-level tech support role. At Christmas that year, Marcus announced his engagement to Sophia, a pharmaceutical sales representative. Her parents beamed with pride while relatives asked about wedding plans. Later, her mother found her alone in the kitchen. "You know, Eleanor," she said, refilling her wine glass, "Marcus's friend, David, is single. He's finishing his residency in finance." I could arrange an introduction. The subtext was clear. At least Eleanor could marry success if she couldn't achieve it herself. What her family didn't see, their user base growing exponentially, hospitals reporting reduced errors and improved patient satisfaction, medical journals beginning to take notice of their platform's impact. "We need to talk about scaling," Beatrice said one morning, spreading investor meeting invitations across their desk. "We can't keep up with demand." By the time Eleanor turned 26, HealLink had 30 employees and had raised $5 million in venture capital. She had moved into a modest but beautiful apartment overlooking the city skyline and could afford to pay off her student loans. Still, when she visited her parents, she drove her old college car and wore simple clothes, allowing them to maintain their narrative about her struggle. It wasn't entirely about proving them wrong anymore. It was about protecting something precious from people who had never valued it. She wanted success on her terms, not as a concession that her path was valid after all. The distance between her two worlds grew. In one, she was a rising tech entrepreneur whom industry publications were beginning to notice. In the other, she was the daughter who had failed to live up to her potential. The cognitive dissonance was sometimes overwhelming. The email from Evergreen Health System arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. Eleanor read it 3 times before calling Beatrice into her office. "They want to implement HealLink across their entire network," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 27 hospitals in 3 states. Beatrice collapsed into the chair across from her desk. "That's the largest healthcare provider in the region," Eleanor finished. They'd been building toward this moment for years, but actually reaching it felt surreal. The contract would multiply their revenue tenfold and establish them as a major player in health tech. Within hours, their phones were ringing with calls from other hospital systems interested in what Evergreen had seen in them. The following month brought their first acquisition offer from a larger tech company, $30 million. Beatrice and Eleanor sat in a sleek conference room, listening to executives twice their age explain why they should take the money and work for them. "It's a generous offer," Beatrice said as they walked back to their office. "It is," Eleanor agreed, "and we're turning it down." They both knew HealLink was worth more than money. It was about building something that actually helped people, something that mattered. They weren't ready to give up control. 2 weeks later, venture capital firm Summit Partners offered $30 million for a minority stake, valuing their company at over $100 million. This time, they accepted. The investment would allow them to expand without losing their vision. When the press release went out, Eleanor requested that only her first name be used. "Eleanor, co-founder and CEO," the articles read, usually with Beatrice's photo beside a silhouette with Eleanor's name. It wasn't about hiding, exactly. It was about controlling her narrative. "Don't you want recognition?" Beatrice asked after an industry conference where Eleanor deliberately kept a low profile. "You've earned it." "I do," Eleanor admitted, "just not yet, and not from strangers." What she couldn't articulate, even to Beatrice, was her complicated relationship with validation. She wanted her family to see her, truly see her, but she wasn't sure she could handle them taking credit for her success or minimizing it once it became undeniable. She needed this to be hers completely before she shared it. Besides, there was something powerful about building an empire in silence. In tech circles, she was becoming known as the Ghost Founder, the brilliant but camera-shy woman behind HealLink's revolutionary platform. The mystery only enhanced her reputation. The profile in Tech World magazine came next. They wanted photos of both founders, But Eleanor negotiated just Beatrice's clear image, and Eleanor photographed from behind, looking out over their growing office. The article praised their innovation and leadership without delving into Eleanor's background, just how she wanted it. At 28, she was a multi-millionaire on paper. She bought a stylish condo in downtown Chicago, but kept it minimal and unassuming. When relatives asked about her apartment, she described it vaguely as a small place with roommates, allowing them to believe she was still struggling. Her circle of trust remained tiny. Beatrice knew everything, of course. Her assistant Clara understood the family situation after organizing one too many declined invitations to Vance family events. Her therapist, Dr. Winters, helped her process the conflicting emotions of success without recognition. "What are you waiting for?" Dr. Winters asked during one session. "What would make it the right time to tell them?" Eleanor considered the question seriously. "I want it to be so undeniable that they can't explain it away. So big that they can't take credit for it or tell me I just got lucky. And I want to be completely at peace with never getting their approval, so if they still don't give it, I'll be okay." Dr. Winters nodded thoughtfully. "And are you working toward that peace?" "Every day," Eleanor said. And she was. Building HealLink wasn't just about creating innovative technology. It was about creating herself, separate from the expectations that had defined her early life. The irony wasn't lost on her that her brother had followed their father into law, yet Eleanor was the one revolutionizing healthcare. HealLink was now being used by over 200 medical facilities nationwide. Studies showed it reduced communication errors by 43% and improved patient satisfaction scores by 38%. Every few months, usually after some family gathering where she'd been subtly pitied, Eleanor would pull up their company valuation and user statistics, not from vanity, but as a reminder that external validation wasn't the measure of worth. The numbers helped ground her when old insecurities threatened to resurface. Then came the rumors of potential acquisition by Horizon Health Technologies, one of the largest health software companies in the country. Their initial outreach was tentative, feeling out whether HealLink might entertain an offer after turning down several others. "They're talking $200 million minimum," Beatrice said, after an exploratory lunch with their development director. $200 million. A figure that would make headlines. That would be impossible for even her achievement-oriented family to dismiss. Part of her wondered if this might finally be the moment to step out of the shadows, but another part hesitated. Was she really ready for her worlds to collide? What would it mean to suddenly be seen by the people who had spent a lifetime looking past her? Eleanor didn't have much time to consider these questions. Life was about to force her hand in the most unexpected way. The call from her mother came on a Sunday afternoon, as Eleanor was reviewing quarterly projections. "Eleanor, wonderful news," she announced without preamble. "Marcus and Sophia have set a date, early fall. They're planning an engagement dinner next month at the Grandeur. You'll need to clear your calendar." The Grandeur was the city's newest Michelin-starred restaurant, impossible to get into without connections or a 3-month wait. Clearly, Marcus was pulling strings through his legal network contacts. "That's great," Eleanor said, genuinely happy for her brother despite their complicated relationship. "I'll be there." "Wonderful." Her mother's voice shifted to a more critical tone. "And Eleanor, it's a very upscale event. Perhaps we should go shopping for something appropriate. I noticed at Christmas your wardrobe is still very collegiate." Eleanor glanced down at her designer silk blouse and tailored trousers, an outfit that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. Not that her mother would know. "I'll find something suitable, Mom, don't worry." "Well, if you're sure." The doubt in her voice was unmistakable. "Sophia works for some big technology company, very impressive woman. Executive track. Everyone will be dressed to impress." The irony of her concern almost made Eleanor laugh. Instead, she took a deep breath. "What technology company does she work for?" "Oh, something about health systems. Horizon something. I don't recall exactly. Marcus says they're very important in their field." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. Horizon Health Technologies, the company currently negotiating to acquire HealLink for hundreds of millions of dollars. This couldn't be coincidence. "Mom, Do you know Sophia's last name? Eleanor asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Winters, Sophia Winters. Why do you ask? Sophia Winters. The name wasn't familiar from their acquisition talks, but Horizon was a massive company with thousands of employees. Still, the connection was unsettling. After hanging up, Eleanor immediately called Beatrice. You're not going to believe this, she said, explaining the situation. My brother is engaged to someone from Horizon. That's quite a coincidence, Beatrice replied carefully. Do you think it will complicate the acquisition? I don't know, but I need to find out who she is before that dinner. A quick LinkedIn search revealed that Sophia Winters was Horizon's Director of Strategic Acquisitions. She would absolutely be involved in the HealLink deal, probably leading it. And in a few weeks, they would be sitting across from each other at Eleanor's brother's engagement dinner, where everyone believed Eleanor was an underemployed tech support worker. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. The pressure from her family intensified as the dinner approached. Her mother called twice more about her attire. Her father left a voicemail reminding her to bring something impressive about her career to discuss with Sophia's parents, who were very accomplished people. A week before the dinner, Eleanor received the most painful call yet. Eleanor, I need to discuss something delicate, her mother began, her lawyer voice never a good sign. Your father and I were talking with the Winters last night. They asked about you, and, well, Marcus mentioned you were between jobs. Eleanor's stomach tightened. I'm not between jobs, Mom. Well, that little computer help desk position wasn't exactly something to highlight. Marcus was just trying to smooth things over. The point is, Sophia's father knows someone at Global Tech who might be hiring entry-level IT staff. Isn't that wonderful? We could finally get you on a proper career track. The casual dismissal of her work, the assumption that she needed rescuing, the complete lack of curiosity about what she'd been doing for the past 5 years, it all crashed over her in a wave of frustration. Mom, I appreciate the thought, but I'm satisfied with my current position. Her voice was tight with controlled emotion. Don't be proud, Eleanor. This is a real opportunity. We all have to start somewhere. After hanging up, Eleanor called Rachel, her childhood friend who had recently moved back to the city. Unlike her family, Rachel had always supported Eleanor's ambitions, even when she didn't fully understand them. Over the years, she'd become one of the few people who knew the truth about HealLink. They set you up for a pity job interview? Rachel's indignation on her behalf was exactly what Eleanor needed. While you're in the middle of a $200 million acquisition deal? That's rich, even for your parents. The worst part is, the woman my brother is marrying is literally the person negotiating to buy my company, Eleanor said, laughing at the absurdity. And no one in my family has any idea. So what are you going to do at this dinner? Show up in jeans and a hoodie like they expect? Or arrive in full CEO mode and watch their jaws drop? Eleanor considered the question seriously. Neither. I'm just going to be myself. No pretense, no big revelation, no games, just dignity. Rachel raised her eyebrows. That's very mature of you. 5 years of therapy will do that, Eleanor replied with a small smile. Besides, I'm done trying to prove anything to them. If they find out, they find out. I'm not going to hide, but I'm not going to perform either. The night before the dinner, Horizon's final acquisition offer arrived. $215 million, with conditions that would keep Beatrice and Eleanor at the company for at least 3 years. Post-acquisition. They were officially on the verge of becoming centimillionaires. As Eleanor selected a simple but elegant black dress for the dinner, she felt strangely calm. Whatever happened tomorrow night, she knew her worth now. No one could take that away from her. The Grandeur restaurant lived up to its reputation. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over blue velvet banquettes and tables set with gleaming silver. A wall of windows overlooked the city river, the city lights reflected in its dark surface. Eleanor arrived exactly on time, not early enough to help with arrangements as her mother had suggested, nor late enough to make an entrance. Just punctual and dignified, like the businesswoman she was. The hostess led her to a private dining room where her family had already gathered. Her father stood by the bar in animated conversation with an older man Eleanor assumed was Mr. Winters. Her mother fussed with place cards at the long table, rearranging them for optimal social engineering. Marcus spotted her first. "Liv, you made it!" He crossed the room and embraced her with the easy confidence of someone who has never questioned his place in the world. "Come meet Sophia." Sophia stood by the window, tall and elegant in a burgundy dress, her dark hair swept into a sophisticated updo. Eleanor recognized her immediately from Horizon's executive page, though she'd never seen her in person during their negotiations, which had been handled through intermediaries until this final stage. "Sophia, this is my sister Eleanor," Marcus said with the slightly apologetic tone he always used when introducing Eleanor to his accomplished friends. "It's so nice to finally meet you," Sophia said warmly, extending her hand. "Marcus talks about you all the time." Eleanor wondered what exactly he said, but smiled and shook her hand. "Congratulations on your engagement. I'm happy for you both." Her mother appeared at her elbow. "Eleanor, I see you found something to wear." "That's nice." The pause spoke volumes. "We've put you next to Cousin Margaret. You always got along with her." Translation. They'd seated her far from the important guests. Dinner began with champagne and toasts. Her father spoke first, raising his glass to Marcus and Sophia. "To my son, who has made us proud every day of his life," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and to Sophia, a brilliant, accomplished woman worthy of him. We couldn't ask for a better addition to our family." Her mother's toast followed, a carefully crafted speech that highlighted Marcus's achievements from his first science fair victory to his recent promotion to senior associate. She concluded with, "And now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence." To Marcus and Sophia. As glasses clinked, Eleanor noticed Sophia looking at her with a slight furrow in her brow, as if trying to place her in some context beyond Marcus's underachieving sister. The first course arrived, and conversation flowed around Eleanor. Cousin Margaret asked about her job situation, with the delicate approach of someone inquiring about a terminal illness. "I'm in health technology," Eleanor said simply. "Database management." Not untrue, just dramatically understated. "Oh, that's nice," she replied with the same inflection her mother had used earlier. "Is there room for advancement in that field?" Before Eleanor could answer, her uncle leaned across the table. "Eleanor, Marcus tells us you might have a lead on a position at Global Tech. That would be quite a step up for you." Eleanor took a slow sip of water. "I'm actually quite satisfied with my current work." Her father overheard and joined in. "Eleanor, there's no shame in accepting help to get your foot in the door somewhere respectable. We all want to see you succeed." From across the table, Eleanor noticed Sophia staring at her more intently now. Recognition was dawning in her eyes. "Eleanor," she said during a lull in conversation, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. "Forgive me, but is your last name Vance?" The table fell quiet. Marcus looked confused. "Of course it is. She's my sister." Sophia's eyes widened. "You're Eleanor Vance from HealLink?" And there it was. The moment Eleanor had both dreaded and secretly anticipated for years. "Yes," she said simply. Sophia set down her fork with a small clink against fine china. "Wait. You're the founder." Eleanor Vance? The one where—" She stopped herself, suddenly aware of the public setting. Marcus laughed nervously. "Sophia, I think you're confusing Eleanor with someone else. My sister works in tech support or something." "No," Sophia said slowly, looking directly at Eleanor. "Your sister is the founder and CEO of HealLink, the healthcare communication platform that's revolutionizing patient care across the country. The company my firm is currently in final negotiations to acquire for over $200 million. The silence that followed was absolute. Her father froze with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Her mother's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. Marcus's mouth literally hung open. "Is this true?" her father finally managed. Eleanor met his gaze steadily. "Yes. Beatrice Ramirez and I founded HealLink 6 years ago. We currently employ over 70 people and serve more than 300 healthcare facilities nationwide. But why wouldn't you tell us? Her mother looked genuinely bewildered. Before Eleanor could answer, Sophia continued, her professional demeanor giving way to genuine enthusiasm. Your platform reduced medication errors at Central City Hospital by 62% in the first year. The interface design revolutionized how doctors access patient information. We've been trying to develop something similar for years, but your solution is light years ahead. It's why we're willing to pay such a premium to acquire you. Her family stared at Eleanor as if seeing a stranger. In many ways, they were. 200 million? Her father's voice was faint. Sophia nodded. The acquisition is set to close next week, pending final approval. She turned to Eleanor with a slightly embarrassed smile. I had no idea you were Marcus's sister. Your company profile just shows Eleanor with no photo, and our teams have been handling the negotiations. I prefer to maintain a low profile, Eleanor said, the understatement of the century. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of shocked questions and awkward revelations. Relatives who had pitied her an hour before now asked for investment advice. Her mother mentioned 3 times that she always knew Eleanor had a special talent with computers. Her father claimed he'd told colleagues about his daughter, the tech entrepreneur, for years. Marcus alone remained relatively quiet, processing the fact that his struggling little sister was about to sell her company for a sum that dwarfed his entire expected lifetime earnings as a lawyer. Through it all, Eleanor maintained her composure, answering questions politely but without the desperate desire for approval that had defined so much of her earlier life. The validation she'd once craved now felt hollow in the face of their sudden, opportunistic pride. As the evening wound down, Sophia pulled her aside. I'm sorry if I created an awkward situation. I was just so surprised. Eleanor smiled genuinely. Don't apologize. It's been a long time coming. For what it's worth, Sophia added, your reputation in the industry is extraordinary. People call you the ghost genius. Now I understand why you kept such a low profile. As they said their goodbyes, her mother clutched Eleanor's arm. We need to talk soon, Eleanor. Properly. Talk about everything. Eleanor nodded, knowing the conversation was inevitable, but no longer fearing it. We will. Walking to her car, Eleanor felt lighter somehow. The secret she'd carried for years was finally in the open. Whatever came next, she would face it on her own terms, secure in the knowledge of what she had built. The first text arrived before Eleanor even got home from the dinner. Her mother, we need to talk. Brunch tomorrow. The Grand Hotel at 11. By morning, her phone was flooded. Relatives suddenly remembered they'd always supported her computer interests. Cousins who hadn't spoken to her in years asked about investment opportunities. Marcus sent 3 separate messages, each more confused than the last, culminating in a simple, "Why didn't you tell me?" Eleanor replied only to her parents, agreeing to brunch. Some conversations needed to happen in person. The Grand Hotel's dining room was elegant and discreet, perfect for the difficult conversation ahead. Her parents were already seated when she arrived, both dressed impeccably, as if for an important business meeting rather than family brunch. Eleanor! Her father stood, awkwardly oscillating between his usual perfunctory greeting and something more befitting a daughter he'd just discovered was wildly successful. He settled on an uncomfortable hug. You look well. Her mother was less restrained. Darling, we have so much to discuss. I've been reading all about HealLink this morning, the innovation awards, the funding rounds, the user growth statistics. Why would you keep all this from us? We're your family. Eleanor took a deep breath. I think you know why. I certainly don't, her father replied, his tone defensive. We've always supported your pursuits. The waiter arrived with coffee, giving Eleanor a moment to compose her thoughts. Once he left, she looked directly at her parents. You never took my interest in technology seriously. Every time I tried to share my work with you, it was dismissed as a hobby, something to get out of my system before finding a real career. After a while, it was easier to stop trying. That's not fair, her mother protested. We just wanted what was best for you. The technology field seemed so uncertain. What you wanted was for me to follow a path you understood and approved of, Eleanor corrected gently. When I chose differently, you treated it as failure. Her father leaned forward. We always knew you had potential, Eleanor. We were just pushing you to excel. No, Eleanor said firmly. You were pushing me to conform. There's a difference. Well, clearly it worked out, he countered. Look at what you've accomplished. Perhaps our pushing helped motivate you. It was the exact response Eleanor had feared and expected, taking credit for success they'd played no role in, rewriting history to cast themselves as supportive mentors rather than dismissive critics. Dad, do you remember telling me to get a real job at Thanksgiving 5 years ago? Or suggesting I take an administrative position at Marcus's firm because my own work wasn't viable? Mom, do you remember arranging a pity job interview for me just last week? Her mother had the grace to look embarrassed. We were concerned about you. You never shared any details about your work. How were we supposed to know? You could have asked, really asked. With genuine interest, not just waiting for an answer that confirmed what you already believed about me. The conversation continued through eggs, Benedict, and mimosas, painful but necessary. Her mother vacillated between defensiveness and attempts at reconciliation. Her father, true to form, tried to maintain his authority by suggesting he'd always seen her hidden potential. Your brother always spoke highly of your intelligence, her mother offered, as if Marcus's approval legitimized Eleanor retroactively. I know you both love me, Eleanor said finally, but love without respect or understanding isn't enough. I needed you to see me for who I actually was, not who you wanted me to be. They parted with tentative plans to have dinner the following week, a first step toward whatever their relationship might become. It wasn't the cathartic resolution of a movie scene, but real healing rarely is. Marcus appeared at Eleanor's apartment that evening, unannounced. I brought wine, he said awkwardly, holding up an expensive bottle of Cabernet. Figured we might need it. Eleanor let him in, somewhat surprised by his initiative. Her sleek penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist design was a far cry from the struggling existence he'd imagined for her. Nice place, he said, looking around. Really nice. Thanks. They settled in Eleanor's living room, glasses of wine in hand, the city skyline glittering beyond the windows. So, he began. I've been an ass. The blunt admission startled a laugh out of Eleanor. Not entirely. No, I have. I bought into this whole narrative about you struggling or being lost or whatever. I never really asked you about your work. Like, actually asked. No, you didn't. He swirled his wine thoughtfully. I think I liked being the successful one, the one who made Mom and Dad proud. It was comfortable. His honesty disarmed Eleanor. She'd expected excuses or the same revisionist history her parents had attempted. For what it's worth, he continued, I'm sorry, and I'm really impressed by what you've built. Sophia hasn't stopped talking about your platform. Apparently you're some kind of genius. I just built something I believed in, Eleanor said. Something that actually helps people. Like what I try to do as a lawyer, he nodded, just on a much larger scale, apparently. They talked for hours, really talked, perhaps for the first time as adults. He asked genuine questions about HealLink, about the challenges of building a company from nothing. Eleanor asked about his legal work and found herself actually interested in his answers, when they weren't presented as evidence of his superiority. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Sophia really likes you, you know. She was mortified about outing you at dinner, but she's hoping you two might become friends. Especially if you'll be working together after the acquisition. I'd like that, Eleanor said, surprised to find she meant it. Over the next few weeks, as the acquisition moved toward completion, Eleanor's family relationships entered unfamiliar territory. Her parents oscillated between genuine attempts to understand her work and reflexive behaviors born from decades of seeing her through a particular lens. There were uncomfortable lunches where her father tried to give her business advice, and awkward phone calls where her mother asked if Eleanor was eating properly despite her busy CEO schedule. But there were also moments of genuine connection. Her father asked to see HealLink's platform and listened attentively as Eleanor explained its features. Her mother admitted that she'd never really understood technology, but was proud of what Eleanor had created. Small steps, but meaningful ones. The most unexpected development was Sophia's role in bridging the gap between her worlds. As both her future sister-in-law and her professional colleague, Sophia had a unique perspective on the Vance family dynamics. "Your parents are trying," she told Eleanor over coffee one afternoon. "They just don't have the vocabulary for this version of success. They're learning a new language, a language you seem to speak fluently." Eleanor observed. Sophia smiled. "I grew up with parents who measured worth by academic degrees and professional titles. It took me years to realize there are many paths to a meaningful life. Maybe I can help translate a bit." And she did, gently educating Eleanor's family about the tech industry, contextualizing her achievements in terms they could understand, and occasionally giving them a reality check when they slipped into old patterns. Her efforts weren't always successful, but they helped ease the transition to their new reality. The acquisition closed on schedule, transforming Beatrice and Eleanor into centimillionaires overnight. The press release mentioned both their full names and included professional photos, Eleanor's first public acknowledgement as HealLink's co-founder. The ghost genius was finally stepping into the light. 6 months after her brother's engagement dinner, life had found a new rhythm. The HealLink acquisition had closed successfully, and Eleanor now led the innovation division at Horizon Health Technologies. Their platform was being implemented in hospitals across 3 continents, with Beatrice overseeing international expansion. Eleanor's office overlooked the city river, its waters reflecting the changing seasons. Today, spring sunshine glinted off its surface as she finished a conference call with their development team in Singapore. A text from Sophia interrupted her workflow. "Reminder, dinner at your place tonight. I'm bringing that wine you liked. Marcus says he's making dessert, so expect emergency cupcakes from the bakery when he inevitably burns something." Eleanor smiled. These casual family dinners had become a monthly tradition, something she would have found unimaginable a year ago. Sometimes her parents joined, sometimes it was just the 3 of them, but the easy camaraderie that had developed between Sophia, Marcus, and Eleanor was something she treasured. Working with Sophia had accelerated their friendship. Her straightforward approach to business matched Eleanor's own, and her insights into Eleanor's family dynamics proved invaluable. She understood Eleanor's parents in ways Eleanor sometimes couldn't, identifying the insecurities beneath their controlling behaviors. "Your dad didn't dismiss your tech career because he thought you'd fail," she observed once. "He dismissed it because he didn't understand it, and Robert Vance hates not understanding things." Eleanor's relationship with Marcus had transformed most dramatically. Without the hierarchy of successful lawyer and struggling sister, they discovered common ground. Both of them were driven, detail-oriented perfectionists who genuinely wanted to improve healthcare. Now they traded ideas instead of judgments. Her parents were trying. That was the most accurate description. They had established new boundaries, her mother no longer offering unsolicited advice about Eleanor's appearance, and her father making visible efforts to ask questions about her work without immediately suggesting improvements. Their weekly Sunday calls were no longer exercises in evasion, but actual conversations. Not always easy ones, but real nonetheless. Her mother had even visited HealLink's offices, her initial awkwardness giving way to genuine pride as employees greeted Eleanor with obvious respect. The healing wasn't just external. The acquisition had given Eleanor the freedom to focus on her own well-being in ways she'd neglected during the startup grind. Regular therapy sessions with Dr. Winters helped her process the complicated emotions around her family's sudden recognition. "You spent years protecting yourself from their judgment," she noted during one session. "Now that protection isn't necessary in the same way, but the habits remain, it's okay to let some of those walls down, gradually." Eleanor had taken her advice, not just with family but in building a broader support network. Rachel remained her oldest and most trusted friend, but Eleanor had also connected with other women entrepreneurs through mentoring programs and industry events. The isolation that had characterized her early career had given way to a chosen family of people who understood both her work and her journey. One particular source of joy was mentoring young women in technology. Once a month, she hosted workshops for high school girls interested in STEM fields, sharing not just technical knowledge but the emotional resilience needed to pursue unconventional paths. My parents think computer science is just a hobby, one 15-year-old told her, echoing Eleanor's own experience. They want me to become a lawyer like my mom. What do you want? Eleanor asked. To build things that matter, she replied without hesitation. Then build them, Eleanor said, sharing resources and encouragement. Find the people who believe in your vision, even if they're not your family. And keep the door open for your parents to understand later. That evening, as Eleanor prepared for dinner with Marcus and Sophia, she reflected on how far she'd come. The external validation she'd once craved had arrived in abundance: industry recognition, financial success, even family acknowledgement. But she discovered something more valuable along the way: the ability to validate herself. Marcus arrived first, bearing both a homemade chocolate cake that looked surprisingly edible and the emergency bakery cupcakes Sophia had predicted. I hedged my bets, he admitted with a laugh. But I'm getting better. Only set off the smoke alarm once this time. Sophia arrived with wine and news about their wedding plans. As they gathered around Eleanor's dining table, the conversation flowed easily from work to wedding to family gossip. Mom's actually reading books about technology startups, Marcus reported. I found tech founders under 30 on her nightstand last week. Better late than never, Eleanor said without bitterness. Later, as they moved to the living room with coffee and dessert, Sophia asked a question that caught Eleanor off guard. Do you ever wish things had been different? That your family had recognized your potential from the beginning? Eleanor considered carefully before answering. Of course. Sometimes it would have been easier, less painful. But I'm not sure I would have built the same resilience or clarity of purpose. I learned to believe in myself when no one else did. That's a powerful foundation. Plus, Marcus added with newfound self-awareness, if Mom and Dad had been fawning over your tech career, I might have grown up even more insufferable than I was. They laughed, the sound floating out over the city. Lights. The journey wasn't over. Family relationships are never truly fixed, but rather continuously evolving. There would be more difficult conversations, more moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But something fundamental had shifted. Eleanor no longer needed her family to see her worth in order to know it herself. That freedom allowed her to accept their growing appreciation without desperation, to forgive past dismissals without forgetting the lessons they taught her, and to build relationships based on who they were becoming rather than who they had been. Success isn't measured by recognition, but by impact. By that standard, HealLink had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams, improving patient outcomes and healthcare communication for thousands. And Eleanor had succeeded in creating a life authentic to her values and vision, regardless of who approved. As for family, the one we're born into and the one we choose, perhaps the greatest lesson was that relationships can transform when we bring our whole authentic selves to them. Not everyone will celebrate your path, but those worth keeping in your life will eventually learn to see you clearly. The next day, as Eleanor looked out over the city from her office window, she felt gratitude for the journey, complicated as it had been. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but she was walking it on her own terms, creating success by her own definition. And that, more than any acquisition deal or family validation, was the real achievement.